So I think what I'll do is I will start with a very warm welcome to all of our participants today, to all of our distinguished speakers, our panelists here for the apprenticeship webinar. I'm Mary Sykes from HERTS Chamber, and I'll be your host for today's event. We've got a few announcements just before we start with the formal presentations. We are recording today's event, so it can be shared and it can be viewed after today. New today, we are trying a different version of Zoom. So for those of you who normally attend chamber events, at the bottom of your screen, you would normally be able to see how many participants and you'd see their name. Because we're using a different format, you won't be able to see that today. However, we would really like to encourage you as delegates to use two different function buttons at the bottom of your screen. You've got Q&A, which is exactly as it says, questions and answers. And I'm aware from one of our guests on the call today that it may be if you're using an iPad or you're using an iPhone, you may just see Q&A and not chat. So please do use the Q&A for questions for the panelists. And use chat if you just want to introduce yourself. As I say, you won't be able to see necessarily all the people on the call, but be rest assured, we're going to send all of you an email at the end of the event asking you to opt in with your permission, and then we'll send everybody each other's relevant details. So thank you for your cooperation in that, and we'll look forward to some questions at the end of our presentations. It is really important, this event today. Apprenticeships will be instrumental not only for developing the skills that our economy will need for the recovery of the business sector, but also in promoting social mobility. And it is my very great pleasure, we're really delighted to introduce Stelio Stefanou OBE DL. He's going to give us some opening remarks with regards to himself and also his view on apprenticeships and the importance of this topic going forward. Stelio, I'd like to introduce you by saying he is one of Hertfordshire's deputy lieutenants, and Stelio chairs the lieutenancy business panel for the county. He was High Sheriff of Hertfordshire in 2016-2017, and he is vice chairman of the UK Cyprus Enterprise Council. And we're also delighted to have Stelio as one of the founders of the very newly launched Hertfordshire Chamber Entrepreneur Foundation. If I could ask our other speakers, panelists, to take yourselves off camera just for a moment so that I can ask Stelio to address our audience today with some opening remarks, if that's okay. And then we'll ask you to put your cameras back on when we come to the panel session after Russell's presentation. Thank you so much. So Stelio, some opening remarks from you, please. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. And thank you for the introduction. That means that the first page of what I was going to say, I don't need to mention anymore. But just to say that before sort of embarking on a philanthropic career, let's call it, not exactly career, but activities, I was in business for most of my life, and I sold my business about 12 years ago to start a new life in philanthropic work. And I also chair, apart from being chair of the lieutenancy business panel, I chair the Stefanou Foundation and the For Baby's Sake Trust. So what I wanted to say today is that apprenticeships are vital for providing young people with workplace experience and relevant qualifications. Not everyone wishes to embark on a university education, nor is it the only path to a rewarding and fulfilling future. So many people have achieved success by entering and completing apprenticeship schemes. But what do we mean by success? For some, it might mean fame and fortune, and many highly esteemed people in business, the arts, public service have started as apprentices. For others, it might mean sustainable long-term employment prospects and work that is fulfilling and that enables a balance with the rest of their lives, Both of these different paths are valid and can be achieved by embarking on the right apprenticeship scheme. So I'm really looking forward to the panel discussion later on so we can explore some of these issues. And I'm also looking forward to Russell's keynote speech and discussion. I hope that you enjoy the rest of this webinar, which I know will be interesting and stimulating. And finally, I would like to leave you with a quote from Woody Allen, the American director, writer, actor, and comedian. When asked how he achieved such enormous success when he isn't the archetypal leading male actor, he said that 80% of success is in showing up. When so many of his contemporaries would lose heart after their failing their auditions, he just kept on turning up and the breaks happened for him. So I think that's something that all of us can learn from, whether we're in apprenticeship schemes or not. So I'd like to pass on to Russell. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much, Stelio.
Could I introduce you, Russell? Would that be possible?
Please.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you so much to Stelio for those opening remarks, and for all of you who are here and for showing up. You've done exactly the right thing. Brilliant. Russell Gould, we are so thrilled that you are here with us, joining us actually from an international base. And it's really going to be important for our audience today to listen, I think, to your journey. I met you many years ago and heard you talk very eloquently, certainly about the business that you represent, but also about the journey of your apprenticeship. So, Russell Gould, Managing Director of HENSOLDT UK. Russell started his working life with an apprenticeship in electronic engineering. He's now the Managing Director, as mentioned, of HENSOLDT UK. Some of you formerly know that company as Kelvin Hughes. He's had that role for 13 years. He led an MBO from Smiths Group PLC in 2007, and he has seen the company develop into a shining example of British engineering excellence with a significant global installed base. HENSOLDT UK designs and manufactures radar-based surveillance and security solutions. Thank you so much, Russell, for taking the time to come and speak to us today.
Not at all. Thanks, Mary, and good morning, everybody. I'm actually on this webinar from our German parent company's headquarters in Munich today. And although I'd very much like to be back in the UK, I'm not sure that's now possible, because since I've been here, the UK has changed the rules about quarantining on the way back from Germany, and Germany has changed its rules about entry from the UK. So I'm sort of stuck between two stools, but nonetheless, it's great to be here, and I really appreciate the opportunity that Mary's given me to speak to you. I'm not going to bore you with a PowerPoint presentation today. I really want this to be as interactive as possible. You know, I'm very happy to share my experience with you in terms of what I do and the apprenticeship I went through, which is actually about 35 years ago. So I'll have to see if I can remember it. But it was very important to me. And then I also want to share with you, from the other side of the fence, as an employer, what advantages an apprenticeship can bring, both to the individual and to the company. And then, if I may, some suggestions to those of you who may be considering an apprenticeship, how you could differentiate yourself from others when it comes to an interview and trying to secure an apprenticeship. So those are the sorts of topics I wanted to touch on. But as I said, please use the Q&A box, and we will try and deal with anything you have during my few minutes here, and then very, very pleased to take questions at the end, or as I say, during. So it's really up to you. But I'm very pleased to be associated with the HERTS Chamber. I was, as Mary will know, I was actually born in Hertfordshire. I was born in Watford, went to school, Watford Boys Grammar School, and have been there or thereabouts in the county ever since. And the company, Kelvin Hughes, or HENSOLDT UK, as Mary said, is right on the border of Hertfordshire, and I drive through it every morning on the way to work. So it is still very, it's an important county, important place for me personally. Very happy to contribute to this today. So as Mary said, I'm the managing director of HENSOLDT UK. It used to be called Kelvin Hughes, and that's a company that can trace its roots back over 250 years. So we're actually older than the United States of America as a company, very famous. And I've been working there for about 35 years. And as Mary said, I've been chief executive or managing director for 13 years now. And very recently, as well as those responsibilities of looking after the welfare of about 400 staff in the UK, I've now been asked to take on the international business development role for the entire German group, which numbers about 5,000 people. So it's a fairly significant role, and one that will see me spending a lot more of my time overseas, not just in Germany, but in all corners of the world where we have offices. And that has all come around because, yes, I have an engineering degree, but honestly, it comes around because of the experience and education I had around that in the form of an apprenticeship, and I sincerely believe that. And I'll go into that in a bit more detail as to why I mean that and in what sense that's happened. But yeah, I have a background in engineering. That was my degree. And I think in my industry, a lot of CEOs they're either from an engineering background or a finance background. And I think there are a lot of them that come from an engineering background. So if there are some of you out there listening to this today who are considering an engineering apprenticeship, yeah, you should set your sights at the very top, because it is possible. And I think an apprenticeship really does give a much broader overall feel of what is possible than a pure engineering degree. And as I said, I was lucky enough to actually do both. And so let me just talk a little bit about that now. So I did something, and I'd be interested to know if this is still a thing, but I did something called a thick sandwich. So after leaving school, I was actually part of a year-long apprenticeship program by the then Smiths Industries, or Smiths Group PLC. So that's a large UK industrial. And they had a tailored apprenticeship scheme before I then went on to do a 3-year engineering degree, which I think may sound a bit counterintuitive and backwards, but I actually learned so much about how general management works, about how to work in teams, how to collaborate, how businesses run and operate, how the finances of business run, before I then did a 3-year normal-ish electronics degree. And in that year of learning how businesses work, it was kind of percolating in the back of my brain somewhere, and such that when I then started my first job, I think I had an advantage over those that had done a pure engineering degree, in that I could see how my role fitted in far more to the overall DNA of the business. So it was really, really important to me. I learned things, as well as specific engineering tasks. I learned things like how team working works. I had the opportunity to listen to visiting managers of the various divisions within Smiths, who would come and give us talks and give us the opportunity to ask them, how they got to where they were. And it's that sort of access to the key individuals in a company, which I think is still certainly the case with an apprenticeship, that really can differentiate you from those that have a very kind of narrow focus in terms of an engineering or other degree. So yeah, that was my experience. It was called a thick sandwich, and again, I'm very interested to know if that's even a thing these days. But it was yeah, quite powerful. I mean, there are many more experts on the call here that will know about the advantages of an apprenticeship, but I just wanted to let you know what they are. And I think, of course, an obvious one for the individual is you do actually start earning money sooner than you would do if you were doing a degree. And you know, that is particularly important in this day and age. And you may be part of a family where, because of Corona or other things, you may actually be the main breadwinner, and getting on the corporate ladder early, in that sense, I think is actually very important. And as I mentioned before, it gives you a much broader experience of how the business operates, and you're seen to be much more, you can get yourself in a position of being much more broadly educated than a pure engineering degree. So you will have, for the 3 years that everybody else is off doing a degree, you will have 3 years of potential access to all the management in the company, all the functions in the company, and really you can make of it what you want. And it's down to you as the individual, having got yourself into that company, to really force the pace and find the area of business which is most suitable for you, and get yourself noticed. And of course, also, there is an awful lot of focus on apprenticeships these days. It is the flavour of the year or month or whatever, but it's certainly something that, yeah, maybe 10 years ago was seen as a second tier means of getting on in business. But I think very much now it is seen as completely an equal of any other route to getting there. And personally, as I said to you, I don't think I would be doing the job I'm doing today if it weren't for having that additional experience of the apprenticeship before I did my degree. So I think it is really important. It's not for everybody, for sure, but I think it does give you the hooks into a general management career to a far greater extent than a pure technical degree would do. So that, from an individual, and that we can have a group discussion about that. I'm very happy to do that. But from an individual, that's what I see the advantages are. From an employer's point of view, so I'll turn to how it looks from me now. We employ, I don't know, something like half a dozen apprentices it's a relatively small company, but half a dozen apprentices. And without question, the loyalty of those guys to the business is far greater than we see from others coming in from other either directly from education or even from other companies. I think those that we first took on, of the 6 we first took on, we still have about 4 working for us now, and some of those are already in very senior positions. So, you know, without naming names, we had apprentices starting on not far off minimum wage who are now earning close to £50,000 a year, and they're still in their early 20s. So it is most definitely a genuine career path to management, as opposed to just being seen as someone who wears the blue coat in the factory. That's really not what apprentices are about these days. I think also it allows the employer to tailor the teaching of the skills to that person that are to the company. So you really can mold those apprentices into exactly the sort of employee that you need, rather than having a kind of generic engineering background. You can make learning on the job practical and fun, and then you end up with exactly the kind of skill base that you need from those people. And of course, also from an employer's point of view, there's an awful lot going on from a corporate social responsibility point of view now, which is becoming increasingly important. So being able to demonstrate that you really have invested in the local community, because most apprentices do come from relatively close to the companies that they end up working for, in my experience. So you are putting a lot back into the community, and you know, you can invest in the courses that the local education establishments run as well. So there is a great deal of interaction between the community and the company. And you know, an advantage for us by virtue of having apprentices was, in particular, during David Cameron's second attempt at being Prime Minister, we were first on his list of companies that he visited and made a specific point of talking to all the apprentices. It was all on national news, TV news. So we had, it was good for us as a company. It was great for those apprentices. So yeah, very, very powerful weapon for us as in the company. And I'll finish now, and I think we can then take some questions and have a general discussion about that. But if you are thinking about being an apprentice, then how do you approach an interview to differentiate yourself from others? I would certainly say the obvious one, and it may sound like I'm very old, but yeah, turn up looking smart, because it really does make a difference. It probably shouldn't, but it really does make a difference. And also, something that you can do that many people don't do is do your homework on the company that you are being interviewed by. What do they make? What do they do? Find out something from their webpage that makes it obvious that you've done your homework. Get that into the conversation and the discussion with the person interviewing you, so that they know that you've taken the time to investigate who it is you're talking to. And you would be amazed how many people don't do that. I would also say, and I probably shouldn't say it, but think of a difficult question in advance to ask in that interview, something that would make the interviewer remember you and think, this person really does want this, really has done their homework and is interested in being part of the team. And so that you need to show that you are keen to learn, that you are keen to join, and that you're not there just to make up the numbers. And as I say, you would be surprised if you just did those basic things, how near the top of the list you would immediately come when it comes to being selected as an apprentice. So we've only got a very short period of time. That's really the kind of key messages I wanted to get across, and I hope that's engendered some discussion points on the Q&A, which I haven't looked at yet, but I'm just about to. So yeah, there's one here. How do you see the role of executives? I think that will change over the next 5 years. So Keith, I don't know if you meant of chief executives or generally company executives, how will they change? I think they will be much more approachable, and I think they will seem far less remote and connected to the business. And I think, again, the more apprentices that come through with that loyalty that I mentioned, then actually the greater connection they will have with all of the staff around them. I think it's very, I don't think it's very healthy to parachute external people into a company with very little experience of that company when you have the talent in that company that has been fostered and has done the various jobs that need to be done. And I think they generally attract a lot more respect than those coming in externally. And, apprentices are a prime example of that. So if you start at the bottom, you work your way up, which is entirely possible, and you have demonstrated to the staff that you've done all the jobs that you're asking other people to do, then the respect is there, and you will, and that immediately makes the executive and the employee base much closer together and work as one. So that's how I'd answer that.
Thanks, Russell.
How do I advertise for apprentices? Okay, that's quite a good one. We've got, various sources. We use a lot of social media. We use LinkedIn quite a bit. So again, if you're a budding apprentice, Facebook isn't the place for you to be looking in from our business anywhere. But again, I'd be interested to know what other people do. But we tend to use LinkedIn, and through Mary as well. You will probably be able to answer that better than I do in terms of how we communicate with you as a company, and then how you maybe help us look for apprentices as well in your locality. So maybe I should ask Mary to answer that one.
Well, there's turning the question to the interviewer.
Yeah.
But you've done a fantastic job, Russell, on inspiring and presenting us with a journey of a very successful apprenticeship. And it's exactly what we wanted. I guess to help answer the question of the last delegate, how do we advertise for apprenticeships? I can speak from a bit of personal experience. My second son is doing an apprenticeship with a company called Warburton's, also based in Enfield. And it was really through searching on government websites and getting advice from school, counselors and things like that. But certainly the chamber here to help be a vehicle of putting people together. In actual fact, we get asked very, very frequently. So please let us know if you've got jobs, and we'll see if we can find a way to help facilitate that. And of course, we do have providers on the call today. You'll be meeting them in a moment when we get to our panelist discussion. And I can see also that we've got in our Q&A and different areas, people sending out links to say, here's where you can find all about apprenticeship. So we'll share those with you in the notes afterwards. I can see we've got another question from Alan Ward. We've got a couple of, I've also got a couple of questions here, Russell, but if I go to Alan's question for you, how do you find colleges and education providers with suitable courses? This has been a hurdle onboarding apprentices for Alan Ward's business.
Well, we worked actually very closely with colleges in Hertfordshire in helping, in fact, tailor some of the courses to that we wanted our apprentices to learn. So I think if you can establish a very good working relationship with a local college, you'll be surprised how engaged they will be in modifying and tailoring courses to your requirements, and depending on the size of the company, of course, that's going to be sometimes very easy and sometimes not so easy. But I think you'd be surprised. So I would focus on building a relationship with one college provider there and build on that. And that's certainly what we did. You know, we're by no means a huge company, but that was very effective for us. And you know, we would ensure that all future apprentices go through that same learning process. Brilliant.
Thank you, Russell. And I know we've got several colleges on the call today who I'm sure will be happy to share details.
Yeah, there was one other question, by the way, Mary. I just, one comment from Bavini, which said what I was describing was exactly what the IET do. And I should have said I'm a member of the IET. That's the Institution of Electrotechnical Engineers. It used to be the IEE. So that's exactly the sort of thing that they can do. And if you're looking at an electronic or electrical apprenticeship, the IET is a very good place, a very good resource to go to look for ways to be helped through that process.
Brilliant. Russell, one last question, I think, for you, if we don't have anything else from our delegates, and I'm checking that we've answered all of the questions, is if you had your apprenticeship self on day one in front of you now, and you were going to tell that individual, what the highlights of your career have been over the last 35 years, what would those be?
What would the highlights of my career be? So there are some technical. So I designed something that we were able to get an international patent for, which I was quite proud of. But certainly the proudest moment was when I was told I was going to become managing director of this firm with such an enormous pedigree and such a, you know, such a legacy and such a proud history. And so for me, that was the most important. And as I said to you at the beginning, I genuinely believe that would not have been a possibility if I'd arrived at the company fresh with an engineering degree with no insight into how the place worked. So, you know, I do owe it to my education, which most definitely includes that apprenticeship. So that would be my proudest moment. I mean, that's a bit corny potentially, but that's it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Russell. Thanks for your time, your presentation. You're going to join our panel, which I'm going to introduce now. I can see we've got a couple of other questions and answers in there. We do have colleges on the call today. I can see how do we help employers connect with colleges so they can influence apprenticeship content. I think that's through further dialogue beyond today. I don't know, Russell, if you've got a last comment on that, but you've done it successfully yourself.
I have, and I just think it really offers so much more of a rich environment than, as I said, a pure degree in a relatively tight subject that you should be considering it. And so just moving on to a couple of questions there, maybe we'll touch on the panel. One from Julie. Yeah, interesting addition to what I was saying about how you prepare yourself for an interview. I think that's resonated with quite a few people. So happy again for us all to consider that and debate that about how you get there and how do you leapfrog all of your competitors when it comes to being selected for an interview. So thanks for those comments there, Julie.
Thank you, everybody. Really, really brilliant. And we'll keep the dialogue going beyond our session today. But could I ask and invite all of our panelists now to bring their cameras back on so we can see you. And I will, thank you, there we go. We'll introduce you one by one. Again, a huge thank you to Russell for that presentation. Really, really inspiring. And I'm sure that will be shared throughout the land after today's event. So if I could ask again all of our panelists just for a moment to come off mute so I can say hello, and we'll come to you with some questions as well for the next 20-25 minutes or so. Could I first say a very warm welcome and welcome to the panel to Lindsey Sherring of HERTS Learning and Development. Could you just put out your hand and quick hello, Lindsey?
Hi.
Hello. Good morning. Also, we have Tara Bishop from the University of Hertfordshire. She's an employer here with us today.
Morning.
Morning. We have Gareth Dace of HERTS LEP.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. And I'm going to do a double act introduction here. We've got Abby Debnam and Callum Morgan, both from HB Accountants. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
And we're joined also by Anna Morrison, Amazing Apprenticeships. She's a provider. Good morning. Georgia Nicol, last but not least, from HERTS Chamber of Commerce.
Hello.
Good morning, Georgia. And of course, we're also rejoined by Stelio Stefanou and Russell Gould. So I can see that we've got additional Q&A, and I'm not entirely sure that's just for Russell. If you wouldn't mind bearing with us, we would like to open up this question and answer period to all of our panelists. And I'd like to kick off with a few questions that have been sent in. So in no particular order, could I please come to Tara Bishop from the University of Hertfordshire? Tara, can you talk us through the key benefits of employing apprentices from your point of view? And can you discuss the transfer of levy and how that works in practices? I think an awful lot of SMEs would like to take access now of that apprenticeship levy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mary. There's various benefits to employing apprentices. You can grow your own talent, which has been mentioned before. You can grow specific skill sets. They're cost effective. It aids retention. And Stelio also mentioned earlier, not everybody, and he's absolutely right, wants to go to university and get a degree. As you're probably aware, the majority of staff are academic at UH, which you would expect being a higher education institution. However, the university also recognises the importance of apprenticeships and the part they play in our workforce, allowing us to grow, mould our own talent and upskill our staff, which is critical in this ever-changing world. UH, like so many other organisations, feel the impact of the skills gap, which affects so many businesses in the UK, and apprenticeships provide the specific skills we need to help close those gaps, especially within areas like engineering and IT, and of course open up opportunities for those from disadvantaged backgrounds. We have staff completing apprenticeships from across the university studying level 2 technician, level 4 associate project manager, to level 7 MBA. Apprenticeships are a fantastic way of motivating staff, and it's not always about more money or better benefits, believe it or not. Sometimes it's just an opportunity to develop someone's skills. As we know, COVID has had a devastating impact on businesses and employment and apprentices across the UK, but I would like to encourage employers to consider apprenticeships if recruiting in the near future. I understand the concerns associated with employing apprentices at this time, especially if they have had to work remotely, but we've managed to employ 2 new apprentices since April in the university, managing the working relationships remotely, and they're doing a fantastic job. Coming on to the transfer levy, employing apprentices is a productive and cost-effective way of growing your own talent, which I mentioned earlier, and it does aid retention. That's why we also support 4 local SMEs with levy transfer, which covers the entire cost of their apprenticeship training for their staff. And what I would like to say, if anybody would be interested in learning more about the levy transfer, I would be more than happy to have that conversation with them. And even if they wish to be considered to receive funds, it's possible we could actually do that too.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Tara. I've got a question from the audience, which I'll come to in just one moment from Jenny. But I'd like to introduce a bit of a, I guess, a double act. It's Callum and Abby. I'll first come to Callum Morgan from HB Accountants, if I may, and just ask you both the same question. If you could tell us the answer, I'd really appreciate it. How did you decide to pick an apprenticeship rather than going to university straight away? And what has your experience been like to date? Callum, if we can start with you.
Good morning, everyone. So I started off when I was 15. I knew that I didn't want to have go to sixth form or university. I knew straight away I wanted to start working. And the apprenticeship phrase, earn while you learn, was always something that really stuck in my mind. I left school 16, GCSEs, looked for apprenticeship and couldn't find one, unfortunately, at the time. I didn't let that sort of knock my confidence, so I started my AAT accountancy through college early, got my level 2, and then found an apprenticeship here at HB. And yeah, HB was really attractive to me because they were a professional and ambitious practice. They were known for training and being a training provider for many people. And yeah, I never really looked back, to be honest with you. Since joining, I've done so much in terms of accountancy, and my knowledge has increased massively. Outside of work as well, I've done a skydive for charity with HB Accountants. So yeah, as an actual apprenticeship, I mean, it's not just a job either. Even though you do your learning, your study, etc., you get so many more opportunities. Like, for example, this webinar right now and the skydive. It's been a very good experience, and I definitely think, considering the rest of my friends and my year group that went to uni have now had this as their first year of uni, I think that I've definitely have made the right decision.
Brilliant. Thank you, Callum, and congratulations on your skydive. Abby, could I ask you the same question about how and when you decided to get involved in an apprenticeship rather than other forms of traditional education?
Hi. So I always thought that was like uni was the only option. You just did your GCSEs, A levels, uni. It was like the natural sort of progression. But I think when I started my A levels, I sort of thought about it a bit more, and I was like, actually, I don't really want to go to uni. I wasn't set on sort of moving away from home. I'm a massive like family person, so the idea of like moving miles away just wasn't for me at all. So I obviously started looking into more things and found the apprenticeship at HB. And as well, I was dead set on getting a qualification. I knew that's definitely something I wanted to do. So this way, at least, then I can still like be at home, do all the things I wanted to do here, but I get the qualification still as well. And I think the difference is with an apprenticeship, because you're learning and then you can obviously like go into work each day, you connect what you've learned to what you're doing. So I think that's really helped sort of like cement actually what I'm doing like into my knowledge, because I understand it so much better rather than it being theoretical. It's like a physical sort of situation. So I think that's definitely helped me. And then obviously, as Callum sort of touched on, you get to do so much more than just like your qualification. Like we do so much more than just accountancy. So I know Callum said about the skydive. So at HB we support Teens Unite. So we've taken part in fun runs, and I never ever would have thought I would have said fun and run in the same sentence. And we've also done like pop-up makeup shops in our office and just lots of different bits like that. So I think that's helped with like personally, like my sort of confidence, like having to sort of like meet new people, do networking, all that side of things. So that's helped me obviously outside of the office as well, just gain personal sort of confidence in talking and doing things like this as well. But, yeah.
Well, fantastic. You're doing a great job and you're great credit to your organization. Thank you, Abby. We've got a question from the audience that I'd like to put to Anna Morrison, if you wouldn't mind helping me out. So the question comes from Jenny. What if local colleges don't teach the courses that we're looking for? And I appreciate you're not from a college, but you are an apprenticeship guru in Hertfordshire. For example, if we're looking for an IT apprentice, but our local college does not teach the course that we found on the Institute for Apprentices website to be most relevant. Could you help me out, Anna?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Mary. And yeah, just to clarify, I'm not a training provider in Hertfordshire, but have basically built my career in Hertfordshire around apprenticeships. So yeah, I grew my business using apprenticeships. Actually, I think we took on our first one when there were just 4 of us in the business, and now there are 10 of us. And a lot of our work is working with schools and colleges throughout England to raise awareness of apprenticeships. And that was all piloted in Hertfordshire, and we found a model that worked and now work with the government with over 4,000 schools. So yeah, to come back to your question, where do you go to find a training provider? Well, colleges are not the only training providers that you can access. So we also have independent training providers and university, of course, as well. So there's a number of different training providers. Some of them will be based in Hertfordshire. Some of them won't be based in Hertfordshire, but will be delivering apprenticeships in Hertfordshire. I have the pleasure of managing the Beds, Herts and Milton Keynes training provider network. So I regularly connect with about 80 or 90 training providers who are operating in our patch. I'll probably regret this, but I'm more than happy to help and try and connect you up with providers. This is where I'm going to get 50 emails through. But if I can help to connect you with local providers, I'm more than happy to. There is also the National Apprenticeship Service helpline, and I'll put the details of that in the chat for everyone. But you are able to phone them up. There is another system on gov.uk called Find an Apprenticeship Training Provider, and I'll put the link into the chat for that as well. It's a bit of an art. You kind of need to know how to answer the questions right to perhaps drill down to the right bit of information, but I'd be more than happy to spend a bit of time with you going through that, if that would help.
Thank you so much, Anna, and apologies about provider, but you've grown a successful business by using apprentices, so it's an excellent example of how it can work really well. I am going to come on to a provider now to sort of answer that same question, if I may. Lindsey Sherring from Heart for Learning. Would you mind just telling everybody a little bit about how you can help businesses in exploring and matching up with apprenticeships?
Yeah, I think it's a really confusing time, isn't it, at the moment? If you're considering taking an apprenticeship, an apprentice on, there's a lot of things to consider. And I guess my advice as a training provider to any employer considering it is think about the big picture, the fuller picture, the longer journey, and what's right for your business in this particular time, but in the longer term as well. So there are so many schemes out there at the moment. There's the Kickstart scheme, which is offering ways of helping people into employment. There are traineeships. You might be working alongside colleges on offering work experience for study programs, or T-levels are out there, but you might also be thinking about apprenticeships. And I guess my advice to you is think about what's the talent needs for your business, whether small or large. What are your longer term needs? Where are your skills gaps currently? What's your succession planning? So we work with big and small companies as a provider. You know, we've worked with really big engineering companies, for example, that understand their workforce is a skilled but aging one, and understand that training up any engineer isn't a short-term process, and therefore they have a really careful kind of succession plan for a number of years. Or are you an SME, a little bit like Anna, that's looking to scale up and wants to really invest in someone that's going to understand the business, really have that loyalty to the business? So I think you need to think really carefully about, are you looking for a short-term kind of fix to a particular skills gap, or a longer-term talent development within your business? Once you've decided that, and if you've worked out the apprenticeship's the right product, then my advice is shop around, really. Probably shouldn't, I should say come to Heart L&D, but actually shop around. It's like anything, there's good and bad of everything out there, and you should really challenge a training provider we actually at Hart L&D, I'm most encouraged when I have early conversations with employers that are really quite difficult and challenging, and the expectations of the provider are there. An apprenticeship works by far the best when the employer, provider and that learner are all actually aspiring to the same thing, and that the work that the training provider puts in is supplemented and supported by the development that the employer is giving also to that young person. So I think, shop around, know what you want, and as Russell said, good providers will look to tailor courses to make sure that the skills gaps that you particularly have in your business or need are there for you. That apprenticeship standards that are now running are developed and designed by employers, but there is still scope within the kind of confines of that standard to be able to put particular emphasis or skills into particular areas depending on needs. So I think my advice is do your homework, shop around, really think about the job role, think about the skills gap, and then go shopping for your provider and ask them really challenging questions. It's your levy money or it's your contribution that you're paying towards the government funding, and you want to make sure that you get value back to your business as well as supporting a person in their kind of career development.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lindsey. I could see a lot of heads shaking in agreement that it's a collaborative approach, and there are a lot of good providers in Hertfordshire, so very happy to point people in the direction of those providers after this event. I would like to come with a question now to Gareth of the HERTS Local Enterprise Partnership. Gareth, how can HERTS LEP enable employers to make contacts with schools and colleges? I know we've had Lindsey just speaking from one of those colleges, but what's the best way to engage with schools?
Yeah, thanks, Mary. It's a good question, because increasingly through my role of our role to try and act as a bit of a conduit between schools and employers, you often find that schools say, like, I keep writing to this particular employer and I never get a response, because we'd love to find out more about their apprenticeship programs, or we'd love to hear from some of their staff. And then equally, I then talk to the employers, and the employers say, well, I keep trying to contact this school and I keep sending emails and I never get anything back. So I think we are well placed. We are working with 107 schools and colleges across Hertfordshire at the moment, and our role is to help them provide those links to local employers, so that students predominantly, but also teachers and also parents as well, can be far better informed about what the world of work looks like at the moment, who those local employers are, the different routes into those employers and to those industries. So if there are any employers out there that would like to form better links with schools, so whether that is because you're thinking about your future talent pipeline and where the next generation of your staff is going to come from, then please get in contact with me and our team, and we can help facilitate those relationships with any number of those schools. So whether that's just on an ad hoc basis, perhaps you've got an opportunity that you're looking for candidates to apply for who are perhaps school leavers or potentially school leavers, then we can help do that. If you want to create some more longer lasting relationships with schools, and we've got 104 what are known as enterprise advisors, and quite a few, Mary, you've put us in touch with, who are members of the Chamber, and they are really, really invaluable, because an enterprise advisor is there to support the school at strategic level, to help the school gain a better understanding of what that local jobs market looks like and what those skills needs are, that we very much want the young people who are going into the workplace to be aware of. So yes, so please use us as the LEP, and please use me, and I'm sure my contact details will be made available, and we can help facilitate those relationships with the schools and the colleges. I noticed on the Q&A earlier as well that Gilmar very helpfully gave a very good advocacy statement about the portal that we've got called HOP. So HOP, HOP stands for the Hertfordshire Opportunities Portal. That's something that was launched last November. It's designed as a one-stop shop for both employers, for young people, for any residents who are looking for careers opportunities, to go to one place and they can see any current live vacancies, but it also provides a host of information for young people and people in schools to know what the big employment sectors are in Hertfordshire at the moment. But there's also a section on there for employers. So if employers want to find out more about taking on apprentices, then it's not our information. It will be very much signposting them to organisations like Anna's Amazing Apprenticeships and through the National Apprenticeship Service. So really do encourage people as well to have a look at HOP. So that's hopinto.co.uk. But also, yes, please get in contact with me if you think I can help facilitate relationships with any of those schools or colleges.
Thank you very much, Gareth, because that has been a common theme today, is how do we engage with the colleges and where's the go-to? So appreciate very much. We've got another panelist who I'd really like to come to, and that's Georgia Nicol from Hertfordshire Chamber of Commerce. Georgia, you have been a real asset to the Chamber. You've gone through your apprenticeship and you've had some highlights during that period of time. Can you just tell us a little bit about your journey, your highlight, and would you encourage others to take on an apprenticeship?
Well, firstly, I would definitely encourage anyone to take on an apprenticeship, especially if they're unsure of what to do. I myself, like Abby and Callum, I didn't want to go to uni, wasn't something I was interested in doing. It pushes you out of your comfort zone. I can still kind of speak from experience that I was definitely not the most confident of people. Probably still not 100%, but it's, again, it's making you build up your skill set. So it's not just the qualification you're gaining skills, personal skills. And I have two main highlights that obviously I would say about my apprenticeship is that obviously I completed it. And now my role at the Herts Chamber is events coordinator. So that is amazing for me. And my second highlight would be that I was lucky enough to win an award for my apprenticeship through Oaklands. So again, that's something else that I can put on my CV, put it on my LinkedIn and things like that. So it's not just the qualification that you're gaining, you're getting so much other benefits and more experience. So yeah, that would be what I would say.
Congratulations, Georgia, and thank you so much for coming along and expressing to other people the value of apprenticeships from your point of view. We've got a question on the screen, and I'm not entirely sure who of our panelists would like to answer it, but can I just read it out? And if you've got something that you could contribute, perhaps you can let me know. It's from Valerie Harden. Valerie says, a lot of apprenticeships seem to be at level 3. This means that students leaving school at 18 are therefore going backwards in terms of increasing their level of academic achievement. Are there many routes for level 4 apprenticeships, especially in engineering or software development? Oh, Lindsey and maybe Anna.
Hi, yeah, it is a kind of genuine challenge, I think, on a learner's career progression to successfully map their ways through the English academic system, if you like. And I think one of the side effects of employers developing apprenticeships is that there has been now more at that level 3 area where they've questioned potentially if level 2 is a real job role in which that person's getting enough experience. So I think the first thing to say is if you move out of a level 3 full-time study programme onto a level 3 apprenticeship, I wouldn't see it as a backward step. I would see it as a stepping stone to further development. So a training provider will be able to, again, tailor that programme so that there isn't repetition of learning from things they've already learned on their level 3. They may be able to reduce the length and duration of that programme so that the focus is much more on the skills and behaviours of the knowledge that they learn and apply to the work environment that allows them then the springboard onto a level 4. I think what we find is if learners come straight out of college at a level 3, very often they're not ready to go on to a level 4 apprenticeship because I think a little bit like Russell said, they just haven't had the exposure to the world of work. They don't understand a business and the wraparound skills outside of the technical skills that they got in college. So it's more of a stepping stone to go forwards than it is a backward step, and I think it should be thought of like that. But a good provider will, again, tailor the programme to reduce any repetition and should be able to reduce the duration as long as it still meets that minimum requirement of being a year in length that allows them then to take the next forward step.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lindsey. And Anna, was there any other contribution for that?
just to add that I've had 2 apprentices in my organisation, both of whom have come through Hertfordshire schools, completed sixth form, done A-levels, and then come to me onto a level 3 apprenticeship. Completely agree with what Lindsay's saying, not a backward step at all. You know, and we work really hard with schools actually to manage the expectations of young people about that's a very realistic step. And you know, we do have higher and degree apprenticeships that come up in the county. But for many young people, they need to spend that time at level 3 to really build those skills. Then they can progress. And I've had one apprentice who sadly left me, but brilliant for her, and went on to another organisation onto a degree apprenticeship because of the experience that we've given her. And my current apprentice, I hope, will go on to a degree apprenticeship, and hopefully she'll stay with us. So so employers don't see it as a limiting thing at all. I think there's a bit of hearts and minds work to do with young people and the people around them who influence them, teachers, parents, carers, so that we reposition that message as a positive step rather than a backward step. Thank you.
Excellently put. Thank you so much. We're rapidly coming to the end of our webinar. I'm sure we could go on, and we've had a really diverse conversation today. I would like to come to Stelio, really with just maybe some closing remarks, if it's okay, Stelio, in terms of what you've heard from the different panelists today, the enthusiasm for apprenticeships, and any you know, just observations about whether you think our county can deliver the apprentices we need for the future.
Would help if I unmuted, wouldn't it? Well, I think we have to do that. The future of the county really does depend on providing the broadest range of opportunities for people to be able to develop their skills and to contribute to the world of work. So it's really encouraging to hear all the contributions that have been made today. I think there's just an enormous amount going on. The lieutenancy have taken a real interest in apprenticeships, and we're keen to do whatever we can from our perspective to get involved. And I think Gareth was talking about the schools earlier on. It would be very good to try and arrange, say, a series of presentations within the schools and to enthuse people about the prospects of doing apprenticeships, being presented to by people who have done well through that line of work. I mean, I know from my own experience, so I didn't do an apprenticeship. I took the other route. I'd say unfortunately, I went to university, studied chemistry, and never used it for a single day after I earned my degree. All of my working life, I learned things through actually doing a particular job. So all my chemistry books are still on the shelf somewhere, and they've gathered dust for about 40 years. And I think really work experience, doing things on the job, is so inspiring if you can see the relevance of what you're doing to the everyday world. That's really what I'd like to say. It's a brilliant path for people. And what I said earlier on is also important. You can take the path to becoming a high flyer through apprenticeships. You can also take the path of saying, well, that's not what I want to do with my life. I want a work-life balance, and apprenticeships will give me that opportunity. So I wish all of you well in promoting apprenticeships, and anything that can be done, I'd like to do as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Stelio. Well, our time is over in terms of our event today. It gives me, again, great pleasure to thank all of our panelists and speakers today. That's Stelio, thank you for your introductions and closing remarks. Thank you to Russell, Tara, Gareth, Abby, Callum, Anna, Georgia, and Lindsay. Please keep the dialogue going on. Another date for your diary, just in terms of networking and connecting across the county. Our next networking event is the 18th of November. That's next week. You can book online for that. We will send you contact details for everybody that opts in at the end of this session today. And keep calm and carrying on with apprenticeships, I think is the message. So have a really great rest of your week. And thank you so much for joining Herts Chamber of Commerce today.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks, Russell.